If our bodies don't have what they need to protect us as the mother, we're going to start seeing those common pregnancy symptoms played out. If more women knew this and our society was not as messed up as it is, we would see much easier, smoother pregnancies today. My own experience of what I did between my second and third pregnancies to really make these last two pregnancies go so smoothly. So I am currently expecting our fourth baby. And if you've been around my channel, I've shared bits and pieces throughout my last three pregnancies, a little bit with my second pregnancy, quite a bit with my third pregnancy, and a little bits here and there in this fourth pregnancy. I wasn't here on this platform in my first pregnancy. I know nothing about pregnancy health to even be sharing anything about pregnancy in that first experience. So I want to share a little bit today about what I did to prepare my body for pregnancy preconception. Now, this will vary a lot on how much time you actually have to prepare for pregnancy. So if you are not married, this is some things I would really look into preparing your body for. Now, I actually did not learn a lot of this until between my second and third pregnancies. So I went through two pregnancies before I knew any of this information I'm going to share with you guys. And I would say I was a healthier person, but a lot of us would say that. A lot of us would say, yes, we eat healthy, we move our bodies, we drink a lot of water, but there's just a lot deeper aspect of this when it relates to pregnancy. So a little bit of backstory, my first two pregnancies were pretty smooth. I had bits of nausea here and there. I had a lot of fatigue, and a few of the common pregnancy symptoms that you would think you should have during pregnancy: the minimal heartburn, the occasional food aversions, the nausea. Where I'm coming from with this is going to be my own experience of what I did between my second and third pregnancies to really make these last two pregnancies go so smoothly. So this is truly going to be what I have done. I'll share with you where I've learned this research, give you some links and resources to delve further for your own research, because what I specifically have done to heal and repair my body and changes in my life might not exactly work for you in your pregnancy, in your stage of life, because all of us are so different. We come from different childhoods. We come from different toxic overloads. We live in different environments. We come from different traumatic relationships. All of that goes into play into the health of our fertility and the ease of our pregnancy, because what many women don't understand, fertility is directly related to their complete hormone health, being in complete hormonal homeostasis, and that relates to our stress levels, our toxic overload, our diets. But many people think it's just their diet, and that's what I want to get to you in this video. Is it's not just your diet, your relationships, your community around you. There's so much depth to this, to putting your body in a state to have an easy pregnancy. If our bodies don't have what they need to protect us as the mother, we're going to start seeing those common pregnancy symptoms played out because our bodies are depleted in some area. And this does not just relate to your health. So what I think I was getting at there is my first two pregnancies, I ate healthy, which many of us would say we eat healthy. And I think that's where we get that misconception, because it takes more than being healthy and eating healthy to have a smooth, good, easy pregnancy. There's so much deeper nourishment, quality of food, quality of life, toxic overload, exposure to things, relationships that go into a smooth, easy pregnancy, free of the nausea, free of the common pregnancy symptoms. And I just want to share with you all that today. So I could talk about this for quite a while. So I want to start out by saying, if you have not had smooth pregnancies, I truly feel for you. I know that can be very difficult. I've watched many other women go through difficult pregnancies and just so badly want to share with them all of this knowledge I've learned to hope that it might ease some of their pregnancy symptoms. So I'm not saying that everything I share will completely erase your pregnancy symptoms, but I believe to some extent it should minimize them greatly. You might have a lot more stress, overload, diet trauma to reverse before you can have a smooth pregnancy as some women. So this is going to vary so much. I hope something I share you can apply and hopefully alleviate some of those pregnancy symptoms that none of us want to deal with. We want to have beautiful, smooth pregnancies, and we should. I think our bodies were designed to grow humans in an easy way, but it's just our world today, the foods that we are eating, the foods that we have grown up eating, the foods that we still consume that are causing all of this stress on our bodies and making pregnancy much more difficult than it really has to be. So one more thing before we jump in, I've heard the phrase many times before, you're just lucky you have easy pregnancies. You're just lucky that you are healthy and you were able to get pregnant pretty easily. And that I can see how that's very triggering to the women who that's not the case for. But what I want to just remind you is, to me, that personally does not bother me at all, because literally I share much of my life here on the internet, so things don't really faze me anymore, comments like that. But if you ever say that to another mama, you're just lucky. Try to maybe think about what she might have gone through before pregnancy to make that pregnancy easy for herself, or to make fertility easy for herself. You don't know what background she has, what she has changed in her life, what relationships have changed, what stress has changed, what toxic overload she's eliminated, what diet she's incorporated. You don't really know all of that, and the hard work she's put in on the forefront to prepare and to have a smooth, easy pregnancy. So I just wanted to put that out there from someone who's heard that many times, and it's kind of just like, well, they don't really realize what all I've actually put in, what all research I've actually learned, what time I've put into learning this stuff to prepare my body to grow another human in a very easy way that our bodies were intended to be. So just a little reminder there before you throw that stab at another mama who probably has put in a lot more effort than you really realize to have an easy, smooth pregnancy. Number 1, eliminating PUFAs. So this stands for polyunsaturated fatty acids. These are oils that are liquid at all times. That's the easiest way to remember it. So this is things like canola oil, vegetable oil, sunflower oil, all of those oils that are in like prepackaged foods, even the health prepackaged foods. And this even includes things like nuts and seeds. I'm not saying completely avoid nuts and seeds, but the heavy nut butters, the nut flours, the nut spreads, those are way more nuts than we would consume in nature. Nuts are actually very hard to crack and consume. So think about if you were out gathering nuts in the yard, in a field, how much of a quantity you would actually be able to eat, and then compare that to like a nut butter, a nut flour. So these things are very difficult on our bodies. The reason for that is because they add like estrogen. Estrogen is essential for our bodies, but an overload of estrogen without a balance of progesterone is where the problems occur. So all of these PUFAs that our society has put in all of our foods, it's literally in everything. We have complete recipes built around nut flours, nut spreads, nut butters. We have the whole campaign, heart healthy oils. We went through the 90s when margarine was promoted to us to eat over real quality true butter. Things that are manufactured in a lab. Any animal products that were fed soy or corn are going to contain an excess of PUFAs. So if you can learn about PUFAs and get them out of your diet. This was one of the biggest changes I made between my second and third pregnancies, is learning about PUFAs and just getting them out of our house. Now, the only PUFA we still consume occasionally is nut butters. We consume them in very, very, very small amounts. I'm talking like a couple of times a month. Whereas before I was consuming nut butters every single day, I was cooking with nut flours, and it's just so backwards of what our society has told us. But if you really dig and think about it, we have been told and led to believe that PUFAs, these oils, are good for us, and their counterparts, the saturated fats, the coconut oil, the tallow, the lard, the butter, is bad for us. But if you really think about it, the PUFAs are made in a lab. Lard, tallow, and butter come straight from an animal. There's not a lot of money to be made off of these, whereas there's lots of money to be made off of these processed, chemically made oils. When I start talking about PUFAs, I usually get very passionate on it. It's something I'm very passionate about sharing and educating people on. But main thing here is learn what they are, learn how prevalent they are in our foods, and get them out of your diet. Like I said, they act as estrogen in the body, adding more estrogen to our body, a hormone that we need, but we don't need in such an abundance. They also deplete vitamin E stores. Vitamin E is essential for fertility, growing healthy babies, having a healthy pregnancy. The more PUFAs you consume, the more depleted you become in vitamin E. So what can you do if you grew up on a diet of PUFAs? Because I personally did grow up on a diet of PUFAs, prepackaged everything, prepackaged snacks that contained all of these oils, eating at restaurants that fried everything in canola oil, vegetable oils. So PUFAs have a lifespan of about 8 years. So I am nowhere near completely detoxified from PUFAs. But there is a start. The quicker you could detox your body from those. So one way to do this is by consuming vitamin E. There are vitamin E supplements you can take. I will link my favorite one down below, as well as start eating the raw carrot salad. This is a combination of ingredients that really help to bind to that excess estrogen and pull it out of our bodies quicker. Vitamin E is also found in high quality saturated fats. So I already talked about the butter, the lard, the tallow, the raw milk, things like that. So just learn about PUFAs, get them out of your diet, find some ways you can start detoxifying your body from PUFAs sooner rather than later, and get on that process of getting those out of your diet. Piggybacking right off of the PUFAs, we're going to go into number 2, which is start consuming more saturated fats. There is a reason that our ancestors ate lots and lots of butter and thought it to be good for fertility, because it was. Cholesterol and vitamin A are essential for fertility. Cholesterol is another one I could ramble on forever about, and how our society has totally terrified us of cholesterol. Cholesterol is actually a defense mechanism our body puts into our bloodstream when we are overloaded with those PUFAs. When we have those PUFAs in our body that break down our cell structure, cholesterol comes in and tries to repair that cell structure, the blood vessels, and it just gets a bad reputation. Yes, cholesterol can essentially clog the arteries and cause a problem, but what essentially caused the problem was the foods we were eating prior to that cholesterol coming in. It's not these foods that are actually high in cholesterol. So the butter, the raw milk, the cream, all these are going to be very high in fat soluble vitamins A, E, D, and K. These are all vitamins that are essential for fertility. And when I say fertility, I don't mean just your ability to get pregnant. I mean your ability to get pregnant and sustain and have a healthy, easy pregnancy like our bodies were designed. So that may be triggering for some, but this is just the facts. You may be able to get pregnant, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have an easy, healthy pregnancy. And it isn't all just back to the luck of that woman. This truly is the work she's put in on the forefront, the way she's designed her life, the foods she's designed herself to eat, the relationships she has left, the toxic overload she has removed from her home and her workspace and her environment, if she's even left the workforce. So I'm supposed to be talking about saturated fats and vitamins, and I'm talking about your toxic overload, but it all plays in together. I could literally talk about this for hours. So learning about saturated fats, fat soluble vitamins, these are prevalent in raw butter, raw milk, cream, beef liver, saturated fats, the coconut oils, the lard, and the tallow. So learn about some of those. This is truly just eating like our ancestors ate, because our ancestors did not have as many fertility problems as we have today. And it's really, really sad. It's not how our bodies were designed to be. It's not how creating families were designed to be. And it's just so sad that our society has pushed this upon us. It's not really you as a woman's fault, because it's just how we were raised. It's what our society has put in our foods. It's the things in our environment that we're breathing and that we're around every day that is causing so much of these problems. All right, number 3, learning about blood sugar balancing. So I just did a video talking about gestational diabetes and balancing blood sugar. I talked about how I check my glucose levels at home and balancing blood sugar. One of the tips I added was to consume apple cider vinegar with water right before a meal. This will help balance your blood sugar, but that's just not like this magic fix. You've got to learn to properly pair meals. So women especially undereat. Like overall undereat, but they especially undereat in protein. When protein is not properly balanced with sugar and carbs, we get that spike in our blood sugar, which can cause stress, which can cause excess estrogen to build up in our bodies. Back to that first one, talking about estrogen being in our bodies causing problems. So this is just learning to pair foods together that will balance each other out. So this is things like cheese with fruit, not just the fruit. Cheese with honey, milk, honey, collagen. Have protein in every single meal, every single snack. I used to think I just needed to pair proteins at all of my meals, because most of us do, but then we'll eat a snack of just a bag of popcorn or a banana or an apple. And while that's healthy, as I mentioned at the beginning, you're not properly balancing your foods and causing blood sugar spikes. So learning to balance that before pregnancy is just essential for getting hormones balanced out, but also when you are pregnant and you're wanting to avoid glucose spikes and the essential possibility of having gestational diabetes, learning this before pregnancy is helpful as well. Okay, next is mineral intake. This one is huge, and this is something I had no idea about until before my 3rd pregnancy. I didn't even really know what minerals were. I'd heard of like potassium and sodium and magnesium, but I didn't really know the priority and the function that they play in our bodies. So minerals are what literally fuel our body and make cell functions happen. So without the proper balance and enough minerals in our body, certain minerals that our body uses to function, certain bodily functions are compromised. So this can trigger things like poor thyroid function, depression, anxiety. Many people who are suffering from some of those previously mentioned illnesses are just lacking in their minerals. And if they learned what mineral intake was and how to prioritize that into our diet, then our society would be so much better off. There would be so much less illness, mental illness and disease if we could truly learn about mineral intake. There's so many studies of patients with emotional and mental disorders that were given the proper mineral intake and almost reversed their illness. It's really miraculous. So the major minerals I would emphasize prioritizing are calcium, magnesium, potassium, and sodium. The magnesium is one of the most underrated minerals today. We used to would have gotten this from our water source hundreds of years ago. Our water sources are stripped now, so just drinking water, even if it's filtered water and like bottled water, there's really no minerals in that. You've got to remineralize your water. So this is where a magnesium supplement comes in. I've talked about magnesium also many times on this channel. I've talked about how we make our own magnesium supplement from carbonated water. I can link a video tutorial on where I've shared about that below. I add this to all of my drinks throughout the day just to constantly make sure my body's getting magnesium. When we think that magnesium is just to help sleep, it's actually to help fuel so many bodily functions. The other one is sodium. This is salt. Salt is not all created equal. You probably know this, but just want to remind you that a high quality salt is imperative. Adding salt to your drinks throughout the day, adding salt to your food throughout the day. Another thing, when we're pregnant, our blood volume should increase, and this is actually a reason for many women experiencing nausea. If that blood volume does not increase quickly enough, that's when we get that extreme nausea in that first trimester. Salt can help with that, and I don't know why women are still being told to restrict their salt in pregnancy. It's just false. A high quality salt should be prioritized in pregnancy. We need sodium. We need it for so many functions. We need it to increase our blood volume, and just the simple adding salt to a glass of water or a glass of juice, something in the morning, can drastically reduce nausea if you're already in pregnancy and experiencing that nausea. Salt is also important for maintaining that magnesium that we just talked about before. So if you're consuming the magnesium but not consuming the sodium, that magnesium is not going to be retained properly to perform all those functions that our body needs. And calcium. Calcium is like added to foods these days. Like I'll read on some of the orange juice sold at our store, orange juice with added calcium, added vitamin D. And it's just, those are not true forms of calcium. True forms of calcium are going to come from like the raw milk, the raw dairy, things such as that. So I've shared a lot about how we eat on this channel. This is not going to be an eating video, but if you want more on how we eat and things that I prioritize in pregnancy as far as diet wise, I'll link some videos below where I share more about what we eat, what our family eats, what I eat before pregnancy, during pregnancy, after pregnancy, to get a lot of these minerals in that I just talked about. Next is learn about the thyroid and the functions of the thyroid, because the thyroid's function is to regulate, create hormones for our body. If it is out of check, your pregnancy is going to be very difficult. Just because you got pregnant does not mean you're going to have an easy pregnancy. Learn about thyroid function, how you can support your thyroid, support your liver in creating and getting pregnant, because the thyroid is, I think it's misunderstood by many, and many women will say, well, I have thyroid issues, I've got to take this thyroid medication. There's a lot behind the thyroid. I'll actually link a course that's called Perfect Thyroid, something like that. It teaches you all about the thyroid function, how to heal your thyroid, and prepare yourself for an optimal pregnancy. That is actually the cause of a lot of women not able to get pregnant, is thyroid imbalance, thyroid function, and repairing that, restoring that will actually help a lot with your fertility and then being able to sustain a healthy pregnancy. So I will link below an entire course on that if you're interested. I'm not affiliated with this in any way. I just highly recommend a lot of these for learning more and delving into more on this. Number 5, increase your nutrient dense food. So these are those foods that pack a big punch of calories, and women are so afraid of calories these days because of what our society has done to the diet culture, etc. But nutrient dense foods are what are really going to prepare your body for pregnancy, because if you have barely enough food to keep yourself alive, your body is really going to struggle to grow and maintain the life of another human. That's why all those pregnancy symptoms are going to arise. Your body's already struggling to keep you alive. You're not giving yourself enough food, much less to sustain yourself to have a healthy, easy pregnancy. These are foods like grass-fed meats, not animals that were fed soy and corn. This high in PUFAs, estrogen imitators, raw dairy, and shellfish, oysters. Those are foods that are like really nutrient, calorie dense, that are just going to help your body prepare for an easy pregnancy. Don't be afraid of food. Quality food from a quality source, quality ingredients, is not going to pack on the weight. You're actually, when you start eating this way, your body will balance itself out the size you were designed and created to be. So when you learn to eat these high calorie, nutrient dense foods, this is really just called ancestral eating. So how our ancestors would have eaten. These are foods they would have had, grown, raised, had accessible to them. They didn't have supplements and processed foods available to them. And I see the mistake of so many women trying to replace food with a supplement counterpart. So there is no replacement for real nutrient dense, quality, grown and raised foods. And I do recommend supplements here and there, and I do take supplements here and there. When I was healing from a lot of this, I did implement some supplements, but the majority of this healing came from the true foods I eat, the ancestral diet I eat. So if you get nothing from this video, I would recommend the PUFA's point and the ancestral eating point. Learning an ancestral diet, I actually have some more things coming out soon on ancestral style eating, some more information for you guys, so stay tuned for that. Coming soon, hopefully, and the PUFAs. So those are the two main biggest ones, if I could stress, is eliminating PUFAs and learning an ancestral diet. So much of those minerals, vitamins are going to come from learning to eat an ancestral diet. And that's where I think so many women get caught up in this. They're like, well, what supplement can I take for beef liver? And there is a supplement for beef liver, and I have taken it and I do recommend it. But you can also just eat beef liver. You can buy beef liver, freeze it, grate it into your ground beef. Buy beef liver, puree it down, cook it in with your sauces and your gravy. There's just so many supplements now for every single thing, when if we learned how to eat like our ancestors ate, we would be a lot better off. Our ancestors did not have this many fertility problems as we have in our culture today, not just with getting pregnant, but also having ease of pregnancy. Women even that are in like their 40s and 50s, 60s that I've talked with about pregnancy, and they're like, yeah, I had a really easy pregnancy. And I just think it goes to show even that generation ahead of us had so much less of these environmental stressors pushed upon them, that even they had easier pregnancies. So don't think that this is your fault, that you're having difficult pregnancies, or that you had extreme nausea, because it truly is the environmental stressors, the environmental push of these foods, these oils. There's so much coming at us. So this isn't, I don't want you to think that, oh, I've done all this work and it's just for nothing because I'm still having nausea in pregnancy. There's a lot of deep work that comes with this. Another thing I wanted to add is, if you were ever on birth control at any point in your life, that is going to completely have your hormones out of balance. And even if you've been off it for several years and now you're pregnant and you're feeling these symptoms, the symptoms of being on birth control can last for years, also depending on how long you were on it. So that's another thing you're going to have to detox from. Birth control puts our body in an iron overload. Iron is another one I haven't even talked about. Iron is very talked about in pregnancy, but it's not talked about how it's properly supposed to be recycled. Our body has an iron recycling system. We don't constantly need to be taking iron supplements. If we are eating foods that have iron, not fortified fake iron, but true iron, then we are okay. There's no need for extra iron supplements, especially if you grew up on a diet in the 90s where everything had added iron, cereal had added iron. If you're ever on birth control, iron is something that has to be detoxified from our tissues, and we have excess iron and not enough copper to help recycle it in our bodies. I've talked about this in videos before. Copper is another mineral that we need to prioritize. Copper balances with iron to properly recycle iron in our bodies and our tissues. The only way we can actually get rid of iron is by having our menstrual cycle, giving blood, or eating copper-rich foods. That will help detoxify and regulate iron. So excess iron in our bodies also will improperly balance that estrogen to progesterone ratio. As I've mentioned several times in this video, estrogen and progesterone are those two biggest hormones you've really got to learn about and learn to focus. I think the ratio is like 10 to 1 for estrogen to progesterone. In pregnancy, those two hormones are elevated even more. more. But if that ratio doesn't stay balanced and it's more like this, way too much estrogen, not enough progesterone, that's when these problems occur. So learn about those two hormones, learn about detoxifying estrogen. You can also supplement with progesterone, topical progesterone. I'll link a good one for that below to kind of bring your progesterone levels up. Learn about copper, detoxifying iron. There's so much I could say about this. I'm trying to keep this concise, and this video is already very long, but I hope that there's something you can pull from this video. There's so many tips and tricks that women will share with, I did such and such to relieve nausea, I did such and such to relieve my heartburn, and that's wonderful. Let's share these tips with each other, because if we're already pregnant and we're already experiencing these symptoms, we can start applying a lot of these things I shared with you today, but it's not gonna magically go away. The best time to start applying this stuff is before you conceive, at least a year. Now, I did not have a year between my second and third pregnancies. So I'd say I started applying this information about only like 4 to 6 months before I got pregnant again. So this is going to vary woman to woman, mother to mother greatly on how much time your body needs to heal. I won't say I've had perfect pregnancies, but I've had easy pregnancies since I've started applying this information and continue to apply this information through my pregnancies. I'll definitely link some of the supplements I did take between those pregnancies. These were things like vitamin K2 just to get extra in my body. Shilajit is so high in all kinds of minerals that you need for pregnancy to prepare your body for conception. Started consuming beef liver in the true whole food form as well as the capsule form. Started consuming magnesium, started increasing my intake of raw milk, raw dairy, started increasing my intake of like shellfish, oysters, things like that. There are oyster capsules you can take if you don't live in an area or you don't like buying like the packaged oysters that you can get. What else did I do? It's been quite a while ago. I'm trying to think the supplements I took. I have a video where I shared the supplements I took in my third pregnancy, and these are ones that I took before pregnancy as well. So I'll link that video as well. Some of these I no longer take because I get a lot of this from my food source now. Probably the biggest change of all, I haven't even talked about this yet, is like the stress of your environment, is I quit my job. If you don't know my story, I was a teacher for 9 years. 2 or 3 of those, I was a mother. And it was just, I realized how stressful it was trying to work 2 jobs, my career job and my mother job. I'm not saying this can apply to everybody, but I've shared a lot on my passion for mothers coming home if they are called to do so, because it is extremely stressful on our bodies. Our bodies were not meant to be under that much stress at all times. Our society thinks it's perfectly fine that we can function like a man does under stress, but it's just not true. So I know that's not a situation for all, but that was actually one of the biggest changes between my second pregnancy and my third pregnancy, is I left a very high stress job and came home to be in a less stressful environment with my children. So I'm trying to think of anything else that changed between those 2 pregnancies. The job changed, the PUFA changed, the ancestral diet changed, the raw milk, the high quality organs, things like that were some of the biggest changes. So again, this is not meant to be medical advice. Obviously, I'm not a medical professional. I'm just sharing what I personally did and research I have done, the work I've put in to learn this type of thing, to make fertility easier in my own situation. So this may not be your situation. You may take a little longer to heal from certain previous childhood trauma, childhood diet, processed diet, toxic relationships, toxic overload. This even goes as far as like chemicals you're putting on your body, spraying on your body, cleaning your home with. I have videos on that as well about detoxifying your home. That's a big one as far as like fertility and toxic overload. Like I already said many times, I could talk about this for hours. I'll try to wrap this video up now. If there's anything that you would like me to delve further into that I talked about, it that you have further questions about, I can definitely do a follow-up video on this. If there's something you want me to elaborate more on or go more into depth on, or if I think of something else I need to share about this topic, I'll make a part 2, because there's just so much, and this literally just scratches the surface on healing our bodies from prior trauma, from prior toxic overload, from prior poor diets, from prior bad everything that our society has put onto us as women, and preparing our body for a healthy, good pregnancy. And there's so much that goes into it. Hope that these tips gave you just a place to start researching. And I am praying for you that you have a smooth conception, a smooth pregnancy. I know that's not the case for all women, but I really think it should be. I think if more women knew this and our society was not as messed up as it is, as far as everything I've already talked about, we would see much easier, smoother pregnancies today. I am praying for you, wishing you the best in your fertility journey, conception, pregnancy, birth, labor. We have a few months left before we make this little fourth sweet baby, and I'll bring you all along for some of that, but I will have links below. Check them out for any more research, any more places to jumpstart, to delve into. I never want you to just take my word for stuff. I want you to take things I share and go research it yourself. Immerse yourself in this knowledge so that you can truly learn to heal, repair, and nourish your body so that it can grow a healthy human and you have a beautiful experience in that.